alumni for Global Women's Empowerment Fireside Chat Series. Thank you all for joining us today from all around the world, and it's so wonderful to see all of you here today. My name is Leah Keene, and I'm the new president as of 1 month of Harvard GlobalWE, which is a shared interest group or SIG of the Harvard Alumni Association. We are dedicated to the empowerment of women through education, dialogue, and connection among individuals who are working for women's rights and freedoms worldwide. We highlight and raise awareness about issues concerning women's empowerment all over the world, including but not limited to education, political rights, freedom from violence, women's health, and economic empowerment. And our board of the directors is as global as our interests, and with representatives here in the US, in Asia, in Europe, and the Middle East. Today, our Connect team is proud to have its 4th event in an exciting program series that features senior leaders of organizations serving women and girls from around the world. If this is your first GlobalWE event, welcome. And for attendees who have joined us before, welcome back. We're excited to have everyone here, and we value your engagement and your continued support. GlobalWE is a registered 501c3 organization, and any donations made to GlobalWE will be tax deductible in the US. Donations can be made by clicking on the Donate tab at our website at harvardglobalwe.org, where you can donate using a credit card, PayPal giving, or Zelle, or you can also find information for how to donate by check. What we'd like to do now is take a quick moment to take a screenshot. We like to do this at all our events. So please turn your cameras on if you're comfortable having your picture shared by Harvard GlobalWE social media. So everybody, let's see if everybody can do this. Okay. All right, everybody, we have a few, okay, so let's try taking shots now. Okay, here we go. Anybody else turning on their cameras? Okay, there we go. We got you done. All right, I'm gonna take another one. Somebody else is joining us. And then if anybody else would like to turn on their camera, okay, there we go. I'm going to take one more. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. All right, now please kindly note that this event is being recorded to share on GlobalWE social media channels. And we ask that you either everyone mute their microphones. As a team, we're so excited to have
Leah is breaking up a little bit. Leah, yeah. Can you hear us? Yes, good. Yes, okay.
Okay, so Anna, why don't you go ahead? We're just going to welcome you. And this Anna is our new Connect chair for GlobalWE, and she will be introducing our speaker and moderator. So please join me in welcoming Anna.
Oh, thank you, everyone. I hope it's not my internet. So if you can't hear me, let me know and we regroup. We have some, I think Leah had a little bit of technical issues, but now it's all well. My name is Anna Butuzova, and I'm a board member of GlobalWE and the chair of the Connect initiative. So what does Connect initiative do? It connects members of the Harvard community and friends with organizations leading the way globally for women empowerment in the arts, social services, education, health, economic development, policy, entrepreneurship, you name it. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Racheal Inegbedion, founding executive director of the organization called Special Needs Initiative for Growth. First, Mrs. Inegbedion will deliver remarks, followed by a moderated Q&A with GlobalWE Connect team member Ariette Escobar. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. And as a reminder, this event is being recorded, and the recording will be shared on GlobalWE social media platforms. And we please ask you to turn off your videos and mute your microphones if you have not already done so. We hope that you enjoy today's discussion featuring Special Needs Initiative for Growth, and become a member or a friend of GlobalWE to receive our newsletter. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Racheal Inegbedion, founding executive director of Special Needs Initiative for Growth. Racheal Inegbedion has 9 years of experience in disability advocacy, policy, youth and development issues. Currently, Racheal is the founding executive director of the Special Needs Initiative for Growth, and this is a non-governmental organization that's focusing on empowering persons with disabilities through the provision of resources and practical programs for living a meaningful life. And she has many accomplishments. She is an Ashoka Young Change Maker and the 2021 Mandela Washington Fellow alumna, and also Global Exchange on Religion and Society Fellow by the European Union External Action. She was recognized by the United Nations Secretary General Envoy on Youth as one of the 10 young inspiring leaders who were changing the world during the COVID-19 crisis. Racheal's organization was awarded the Best Innovative Project Practice in Employment and ICT for Persons with Disabilities by the Zero Project. And we also wanted to note that publications such as Google Chrome and Voice of America featured her as a Google Leap Taker for using STEM and robotics to empower youths with disabilities in Africa. Racheal is undergoing her Master in Sustainable Development at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. Mr. and Mrs. Inegbedion, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anna. I felt so elated just hearing all of that about me, and I'm really humbled to be here, to be part of us, to share strategies, learn from us, and also give you more insight about what we do at the Special Needs Initiative for Growth. Like today is the International Day of Persons with Disability, and the theme of this year is all about transformative solutions for inclusive development. That is the role of innovation in fueling an accessible and equitable world, where the major aim is to innovate disability inclusive development and employment, and innovate disability inclusive development in reducing inequality. All of this which our organization is pushing for through the work that we do in local and regional, focuses. So I would ask any one of us to please share the screen for the slide so that I can just talk through basically what we do. Thank you so much. So who are we? Who is or what is Special Needs Initiative for Growth? We are a civil society organization located in Nigeria, and we provide empowerment tools and resources that helps young persons with disability in terms of Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, visual impairment, autism spectrum disorders, help them to become thriving in the society. We do this through total empowerment tools in education, human rights, career development. And then our vision is to ensure that the quality of education is nurtured for people with disability, and that we create further employment opportunities through technology services for them so that their potential and dreams are not lost. I would now move forward to the next slide. Thank you. So basically, the next slide here is talking about how we started this program. And it's just majorly sharing here, my story, how it all started. So basically, years ago, I visited a home for people with disabilities. And I saw something that changed my life. When someone visits, the residents sing a welcome song and share a prayer with their guest. And one of the young women with cerebral palsy who had a beautiful voice sang longer than I suppose. And the workers, we were very, very angry because when they saw her sing longer, they strike her on her head and tell her to be quiet. At that time, I was really angry. And I spoke to the head of the home, and the worker apologized. But I felt like there was a need to do more. And I began to think about the lives of people with disabilities, not just in Nigeria, but in other parts of the world. And I realized that it wasn't just a situation with that individual worker that needed to change. My community as a whole needed to see people with disabilities for their full humanity, potential, and dignity. And I began to start to think about, amazing opportunities, how people with disabilities can be included in a much, conducive atmosphere. And that was what led me, I became part of a program then called the Young African Leaders Initiative, Regional Leadership Council in Ghana. And then I met up with 4 amazing young youth-led professional experts at that time. And together we came up with innovative strategies and disability inclusive solutions to educate caregivers, the family, disability people organizations, civil society organizations, the government, on how people with disabilities need to be built in terms of their capacity, how people need to be built in terms of their capacity to expand their emotional intelligence, and then enable them to know how to serve people with disabilities in a better way. And since that time, my team and I have gone on to offer career development services, such as health support services, assistive technology, rehabilitative technologies, mentorship, entrepreneurial projects. And we do this all through the vocational and education technology, where we do STEM and robotics projects, career practices for young persons with disabilities. And after they've been trained, we ensure that they are able to integrate their skills through internship or other job opportunities. And that makes us to have at about 11,000 persons with disabilities and caregivers who have been provided opportunity to invest in their potential. And we do this also through training the trainers. So that means once we equip persons who cater for people with disabilities, they can transfer the right knowledge and skill to the young persons with disability. Thank you. The next slide. Now, in this slide, there's an aspect of career development, and in partnership with some of the employers of labor, some of our young adults with disabilities are placed into internships, like I mentioned, like education technology companies, libraries, logistic companies within Nigeria and other parts of Africa. And this helps them to invest in practical activities that is related to communication, team collaboration, and other working tasks. So this year, we partnered with a multidisciplinary coach and producer in California. Her name is Sarah Cohen, and we produced 2 short documentaries and a disability employment manual, which is currently used by recruiting organizations to help build the capacity of persons with disability. And the goal is to promote local schemes which allow people often with severe disabilities to work successfully, alongside non-disabled peers. So that means we're building their capacity through workshops. You're motivating employers to hire accessibility-related settings so that people with disabilities can work and function in the right atmosphere. Over to the next slide. I love this slide. It's very passionate and very, very rich for me because this is about women. And that's one of the essence of the HarvardWE Global Women, bringing women advocates together. So here it's about how we use entrepreneurship, financial literacy to empower mothers, low-income mothers who have children with cerebral palsy. And one of the things is that we hear stories, firsthand stories of most of these women. They come to us and say, I have tried to kill myself. I am attempting to kill my child. There's often denial and rejection from their spouses, from their families, due to the social and cultural factors. Because a birth of a child with cerebral palsy destabilizes 70% of these women. And they feel like they're unsupported, they become overwhelmed by contradictory feelings. And some of these mothers do not have personal relationships with friends because they are forced to stay indoors with their children most of the days because of the jeers and sensitive questions. And then as a child is growing up older, there's a result of serious failure in the health and then education and general rehabilitation process. And without these resources in terms of appropriate guidance, these women remain insecure, which often leads to frustration and then the chaos in their lives. So one of the reasons why we started up this program is to undergo a sort of training. And we did this in partnership with the Let Cerebral Palsy Kids Learn Foundation, because the founder is a Nigerian civic activist and also a disability advocate and lawyer with cerebral palsy. Her name is Tobiloba Ajayi. So together we profess solutions on financial education that includes financial management, accounting, budgeting, bookkeeping, issues around interest rates, calculation, tracking household inflows and outflows, customer relationship, how to invest after they've made sales, accessing financial information, and even learning how to pitch their businesses. And these mothers are equipped with digital marketing skills such as Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp campaigns, email marketing, Google digital skills, all of this enabling them to, bring out the best in their various businesses. And as we train the mothers, we're also training the children with cerebral palsy at the same time in the same facility. So the children are undergoing training on STEM practices, robotics, learning how to flex their gross motor skills, their fine motor skills. All of this are really very important for their, developmental, growth and all of that. So as part of our M&E, one of the things we do is that we ensure that these mothers also go to tell their stories, because we want people to be inspired by what has happened from this project. So they tell their stories and we share the videos, we share infographics, photos and success stories of these women. And then we also conduct like business site visits, make phone calls to evaluate their performance and also evaluate the stage of the child's educational, progress. All of these things just to ensure that these women are not left behind and they are part of the overarching process for, inclusion. Now, I would move over to the next slide. Thank you. Now, this slide is the project I talked about on ensuring that we bring people who are disabled into the workforce. So this is the 2 documentary films that we produced this year. And in collaboration with my partner in the United States, Sarah Cohen, when we did this project, we did it with the support of the US Department of State under the Mandela Washington Fellowship Reciprocal Exchange Project. And then we used digital storytelling to normalize conversation that enhanced the knowledge, the skills, and attitudes of employers of labor in Nigeria and other parts of the world. And this project here, I would share the links later of these videos. So it has to do with helping mothers with, helping employers of labor see reasons about employing people with disabilities. So it's mainly about 3 young adults with visual impairment who share their journey, their barriers to employment in a short documentary style film. And also we had employers of labor featured in this same documentary to serve as a platform for conversation around increased compliance with Nigeria and other countries. I think the slide has gone off. Could you help me put up the
In order
slide?
to share the video, I need to do it separately.
Oh, okay. I think we could share it on the chat box and anyone can just go grab it later because of time. Okay. So basically the documentary helps to shift the attitudes from the culture of compliance, which we usually have in most of our workforces, into a truly inclusive workspaces where people with disabilities are involved, they're part of the process. So it also helped to promote the mainstreaming of disability, giving people with disabilities some sort of role model in respect, supporting them, celebrating human diversity. And at that time, one of the reasons why we produced this film was to cause a positive effect on employers of labor. We had the biggest, one of the Nigeria's #1 recruitment website with over 2.5 million job applicants and 60,000 employers were also part of this campaign. So they partnered with us, and then together we began to put structures around mobility, work flexibility, healthcare for employees with disability. All of this were done as a result of the documentary film that was shared previously on the screen. And we're able to measure the result because of the advocacy agreement that we had with them, including persons with disability in the workforce. So I'll be waiting for us to put up the next slide so I can talk through it. All right, thank you. Thank you, Barbara. So on this next slide, we will be seeing testimonies of some of our beneficiaries who are now part of our small family. Here we have Abiodun Oyeniro. He's the guy standing just above other people with a computer. That was during one of our trainings sometime last year, where Biodun is now an accessibility and digital specialist for us. Biodun is visually impaired. Everyone you're seeing on the screen are visually impaired, they're all blind. And young Biodun, who's 27 years of age, was also one of our trainees in 2018, yes. We trained him, and now he's working with us as one of the leadership team. And you can see his testimony here. I was exposed to digital literacy skills as one of the course training I encountered in 2018. And it opened my mindset about the endless possibilities that a visually impaired adult can do in the ICT workspace. So yes, Biodun is one of our advocates, and we're so proud of him and his innovation and professionalism as he continues to inspire other young adults with visual impairment to take up action in their various communities. Next slide. So as you can see here, we've received awards from the World Summit on the Information Society Prizes. This was done last year, and then our category was for the enabling environments. And then we were also awarded by the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy and Chairman of the World Society Information Society for 2022 on the same project. We've also received international recognition by the Presidential Precinct in Charlottesville, Virginia, in the United States, as a result of this project called Empowered Mothers, Thriving Children. Over to the next slide. So this slide has to do with the Google recognition we got. So one of our proudest achievement is to be awarded by Google Leap Takers. We're awarded because of the fact that we became the best example of IT's incredible impact on our world. And this basically helped, one of the reasons why we were awarded is because our activity included fostering young adults with disabilities to build their capacity in ICT and then help them to hone their perceptual skills, like for example, how to understand distance, altitude, orientation, using their motor skills in terms of precision, movement, and then preparing them for technological careers as well. Next slide, please. Here, this is just another major achievement for us. I was spotlighted as one of the Ashoka Young Changemaker. Here we won the Global Social Thinking Contest organized by the British Council and Ashoka. This was in 2019. And then the aim of this was to use the training, the learning to provide more social innovation to over 200 leading social innovators. And then it was more of a corporate global process of sharing, learning, co-creating solutions to current challenges that affect persons with disabilities. So yeah, the next slide, please. So for this one, this is the Mandela Washington Fellowship. As said by Anna, I'm an alumni, a 2021 alumna, and the Mandela Washington Fellowship was another opportunity back then that enabled me and the team to leverage experiential and discourse-based learning with applicable knowledge about the US culture, also the society, and then cultural exchange, strategic networking, site visits. So what it did for us then and up to now is it's helping us to build our knowledge of how the United States carries out strategies that strengthen political and international responses to inclusion, how this leads to the enactment of federal and state laws, how it advanced civil rights for people with disabilities, such as the 1990 Americans with Disability Act. And all of this was all of the learning that was garnered and then, brought into my contest, into my local contest in Nigeria, where I'm pushing for the Africa Disability Protocol, which is kind of similar to the American Disability Act, Americans with Disability Act. So it's a protocol that provides a much greater inclusion for Africans, Nigerians with disabilities. So yeah, the next slide. So this next slide, we have a growing number of volunteers, 21 volunteers with various professional backgrounds, skills in Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, South Africa, Botswana, Philippines, Zimbabwe, Uganda, United Kingdom, and United States. And these volunteers, as you can see, they lead smaller groups. We run sustainability trainings around education, employment, life skills, that helps to build the capacity of persons with disability. Okay, so in this last slide, I would like to say that we are like a moving train. We're taking it one step at a time, but we're not deterred by our circumstances because sometimes we have barriers, but it actually makes us really focused and critically aware. And we're very determined to empower more people globally than the numbers that we have now. So what this means that in the next 10 years, we aim to have about 1.7 million persons with disability, of the 85% of people with disabilities globally, accessing our learning and virtual engagement platforms. And how we aim to do this is through an accessible virtual platform for learning. We want people with disabilities to learn, to thrive, to enjoy their dignity and full inclusion. And we intend to do this with a partnership of organizations like the Africa Disability Alliance, where we'll be providing inclusive education for learners with disability through STEM, robotics, education, learning therapy, virtual learning, all of this, because we want them to become, very fruitful and much thriving. So the next slide just has to do with our contact information, and we will be happy to gain more discussion through this channel. We're happy to, have more conversation, and we're happy to learn from one another. So thank you. And I think that's all from me from now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Racheal. I enjoyed it a lot, your presentation. And I also like to thank you for your leadership of the Special Needs Initiative for Growth and your passion about empowerment of women and girls with disabilities. So now I would like to introduce GlobalWE Connect member Ariette Escobar. Ariette will moderate a question and answer session with Mrs. Inegbedion, and then after that, attendees will have an opportunity to ask questions.
Great. Thank you, Anna. And thank you, Racheal, for joining us today in that fascinating presentation. So, the work you do with people with special needs is quite impressive. What have been some of the unique challenges facing women and young girls with disabilities? And what are you most excited about regarding the projects Special Needs Initiative for Growth is working on to empower these women and girls?
Thank you, Ariette. So some of the challenges affecting women and girls are social, cultural, and economic issues. I'm happy that we are in the period of the 16 days of activism, which commenced on the 25th of November to amplify the awareness of gender-based violence against women and girls, inclusive of women and girls with disability. So basically, I would like to kickstart that studies from low-income middle countries, especially my country, Nigeria, demonstrates that women with disabilities are 2 to 4 times more likely to experience intimate partner violence, yes, IPV, than their non-disabled peers. So what that means is that women with disabilities face added barriers in seeking assistance due to dependence on the perpetrator for mobility, for communication, or even access to medications and healthcare. However, sadly, this means that violence against women and girls with disability is reported to experience some form of sexual and gender-based violence, including rape. Yes, even with women with disabilities, I could give you an example. So in 2018, there was a young girl that were asked to come to intervene. So this young girl goes from her house to the street. She has Down syndrome. She was 30 years of age then. She goes from her house to buy food. Her parents sent her to buy food. And with given her intellectual disability, some young boys in the neighborhood take advantage of her. They take her to an uncompleted building. They rape her continuously. So for 7 months, she was continually raped by young men that she never knew. And then guess what? When we interrogated the whole issue and investigated the matter, when we asked her, did you enjoy it? She said yes. And for me, it was really hard to explain why. And given the fact that she had intellectual disability, that was one factor that displayed the reason. And then obviously, there's other studies that show that young girls with disability, with Down syndrome, have high sex drive. So all of those things were the factors perpetrating at that time, and we had to intervene. And we intervened by, identifying those people, putting them into the youth juvenile justice system, and ensuring that she also got psychological intervention through people who were good in, psychological, therapy and all of that. So it really helped her. And now she's in one of our programs. She's really thriving. She's doing really well. But one thing I can say is that we have developed beyond that. So what we do is that we take targeted efforts to inform women and girls about programs, services that encourage their participation. And that means that we arrange appropriate transportations, provide sign language interpretation for people who are deaf and blind, so that they can have access to gender-based violence issues and find how to work on them. And also, we also conduct data. We gather data on the number of women and girls that benefited from other government and intergovernmental programs. And we use this data to develop inclusive programs for women with disabilities, for girls with disabilities, through the STEM, robotics, and soft employment skills training that we give to them. And lastly, we also have a safety and defense mechanism toolkit. Now, what we do is that we use this toolkit to enable people with disabilities understand how to minimize the harm that is done by the perpetrator, how to identify resources and ways to escape when they're in harm's way, how to avoid harm, how to ensure that they run for safety, because we understand that safety planning empowers the survivor to have some control over a situation that's usually quite victimizing and demeaning. So yes, all of this strategy. Thank you.
That's great. Sounds like those toolkits are really an important part of the work that you're doing. So my next question is about employment and the internships that you're able to secure for your program. How does your organization go about doing this? And could you share a little bit with us about what the biggest challenge is in running this type of organization in Africa compared to other locations around the world?
Yeah, I would say that the process has not been so easy because we have had ups and downs where organizations or employers of labor are not adequately prepared to recruit persons with disability, even when they know that the person is qualified or has the right competency and capacity to deliver on the job. So one of the challenges we faced when we applied these values was on a project in 2019. This project was basically to empower young persons who had visual impairment. So after the training, we monitored and evaluated their performance, and we discovered about 70% of the trainees desired to go back into the workforce because many of them were not born blind. So they, in one form of life, they became blind. Many of them had jobs before they became blind. So they wanted to go back into the system. But we empathized with the situation because we did an analysis, and then we found out that about 85% of associations of people with this, of employers of labor, were not ready to mentor or integrate these young persons at that time into the workforce because they were seen to have limited functionalities. That was majority of the factors at that time. So the employers were not sensitized on how to work with people with disabilities, as well as obtaining education on how to provide reasonable accommodation for persons with disability in the workplace to thrive. And so to overcome this obstacle, one of the things we had to do was to create some sort of advocacy reach online through social media platforms like LinkedIn. So LinkedIn then was a very useful tool because we're able to measure through polls the kind of conversations around inclusive hiring and inclusive opportunities for people, employees or potential employees with disabilities. And so we also used LinkedIn to buttress that if people with disabilities were granted opportunity to integrate into technical roles, they would have insight on how to deal with customers with disabilities. Because whether we like it or not, we have customers with disability. And so we should be prepared for them. So we also portray that there will be a greater diversity at work sites so that a wide variety of perspectives were utilized, when resolving problems, if they were going to hire people with disabilities. So after all of the advocacy and campaign, we got a significant number of employers, about 75% of employers of labor out of about 200 people that we put this survey to, were able to see reason, and then they affirmed their support to include people with disabilities into the mentorship scheme that they had, into internship roles and other employment roles.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Racheal, as a mother myself of a special needs child, I wanted to say that I really admired how you approached the mothers with children of disability and offered them the financial skills and entrepreneurship opportunities. What made you decide on this approach? And can you tell us a bit more about how that has helped families, particularly mothers, like women in these societies, beyond the needs of the disabled child?
Yeah, I would say that I was inspired by the life and positive outcome of one of our project partner, who's also the founder of the Let Cerebral Palsy Kids Learn Foundation. Her name is Tobiloba Ajayi. And also, I was also triggered by the social cultural biases and norms that women who have children with special needs had to encounter on a daily basis. So the community affected of these women are women, low-income mothers between the ages of 18 years to 45. Some of them are even lower than 18. So you have young mothers of even 16 or 15 years of age, and they are within the rural and suburban communities in the southwestern part of Nigeria, the northern parts of Nigeria. So highlighting the demography of these people, they do businesses like cassava production, liquid washing, household chores, bread sales, hair weaving, rice, bean sales, all of these things. And due to the remote and inaccessible location of these women, they lacked information to go to physicians to guide them on how to deal with their children with cerebral palsy. Some of them had, their children growing older to the extent that they begin to highlight serious failing issues of the health of the child, because there was no money to cater for the needs of the child. And some of them have also experienced, their likelihood to go back to school, to go back to paid jobs. But because they cannot do this, because they lack infrastructural facilities, they're left like handicapped. So these women they're even scared of not wanting to go out because they're blamed for their conditions. All of this dealing with the cultural biases. And then there's another belief in Nigeria that says that a mother with cerebral palsy should be blamed because giving birth to a child with cerebral palsy or any form of disability is seen as a failure to follow traditional beliefs and culture. So hence the reason for slow social integration and other cultural activities. Now, all of this mentioned, the issues motivated my organization and the Let Cerebral Palsy Kids Learn Foundation to conduct for 4 years now the program known as Empowered Mothers Thriving Children, which is a career development initiative for mothers with cerebral palsy children. So we not only train these mothers on internet entrepreneurship, innovation, digital marketing skills, but we also help to provide curriculum prototypes for the growth of their children with cerebral palsy. And I can also say that 70% of these mothers during the first cohort are currently applying the technology-based support and services on their businesses. So you have some of the women in agriculture, food business, healthcare, education technology. Now some of them transited into financial literacy schemes. So all of these things are kind of the way that we actually see some sort of accomplishments from this mothers. And this way, they have been able to replicate this over time. They're creating jobs in their local communities. They're also helping their children thrive in the educational aspect, in the medical aspect, in the social aspect, because of the program that we brought out for them. So yes, thank you.
So you just mentioned the Let Children with Cerebral Palsy Learn Foundation, which sounds like a great partnership to have with them. Are there any other organizations that you are looking to maybe work with or partner with in Africa or maybe in other continents?
Yeah, we'll be happy to partner with Pan-African as well as organizations in the United States, Europe, Asia, because we want to support mothers on the financial technology resource. So we're looking at how they can have resources to investment platforms after they make sales, how they can build their capacity for their businesses, as well as access to small enterprise grants for them to really scale up and maximize their businesses. So yes, we're open for this sorts of partnership and obviously mentorship. So we also are open to people who would come to say, hey, we identify with you, we'd like to mentor 1 or 2 mothers and coach them, because we believe that sometimes knowledge it can't just hold in one water. It has to flow so that we can make the world really a better place. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, yes. Hopefully we'll have some people out there on the call and you can expand to work with others. Something else, Racheal, what are the challenges of working on the adoption and ratification of the Africa Disability Protocol? And do you know, does Nigeria face different challenges than other countries that have ratified the protocol?
Yeah, there's a lot of social cultural challenges that affect the adoption. So basically, first and foremost, for those who do not know the Africa Disability Protocol, it's a transnational policy and it builds on the rights enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability and the United Nations Charter. So it also addresses some of the issues that are identified by seeking to criminalize all forms of discrimination against persons with disability and address their rights to participate in meaningful economic activities. The Africa Disability Protocol will become effective once it has been formally accepted and ratified by at least 15 of the 55 African Union member states that have accepted to be bound of the African Charter. And to date, we only have about 10 African countries. We also have about I think 5 countries have ratified. So 10 African countries have signed, and then we have about 5 countries that have ratified. But I would say that some of the barriers to the Africa Disability Protocol being adopted and ratified, we have like lack of participation from the member states and countries. So that could actually hinder the implementation. We also have the law, the policy, and institutional barriers, some of which directly discriminate against people with disabilities and others that fail to address persons with disability in a meaningful way. Another barrier is environmental barriers. So inaccessible communication systems prevent access to information, the knowledge, the opportunities to participate. So if the environmental barriers are there, people will not, even language. So language is also a barrier because in my country, Nigeria, we have over 735 languages, ethnic languages. So if you're not communicating the language that they understand, how can they be part of the process? So We also have issues around the lack of rigorous and comparable data and statistics, combined with lack of evidence on programs that work. And all of this kind of impedes understanding and action of how to ratify the ADP. And also there's inaccurate views. So inaccurate views means like regarding the cost, difficulty of disability inclusion, inadequate funding, allocations for implementing policies. All of these plans can prevent the implementation of the African Disability Protocol, so yes, these are the barriers. Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Well, Rich, I see that you are coming up on your 5-year anniversary, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations. What are your most memorable accomplishments to date? What is the most important takeaway that you've had from your time leading this organization?
I would say thank you first, Harriet. Thank you and the team, because this is really a great opportunity for us to spotlight what we've been doing. I know that a lot of people don't have much of this spotlight, getting to share their story, but for us, this is a great platform for us to share our story and let people be inspired. So first of all, we're really grateful for the community that we have and that we serve. And then we reflect back over the years. One thing that is of a memorable accomplishment that we've done so far is have a valuable and committed internal team. Yes, internal team members. It's one thing to have to share solutions to the problem of the community. There's another thing is for you to have a backup, people whom you can depend on anytime to be part of the process. And that's basically one thing we've had over the years. So most of our programs we've run with the team members, with the board of trustees, the volunteers, they're actually done by people who are really passionate about the problem. They're passionate about driven solutions to support people with disabilities. And then there's also a belief for me, and this concept has always helped me. It means the tiny drops of water can really make an ocean. And I think everyone here can relate to this, because that's basically what they've been doing all this while. They may not have the know-how so well or so expansively, but the commitment, the passion, the drive, the ability to learn is one thing that's really been pushing our team for all this while. And then another thing again is our team members have been the fuel and energy and soul. Very, very grateful for that. And I would say that I'm grateful for the accomplishments of the persons with disability that we serve. Many of them come back to us thanking us for the support and then the love that we've shown to them, especially when they assess entrepreneurial opportunities, grants, education, vocational skills. I can say we're so grateful to have all of these voices heard. As the saying goes, nothing about us without us. So typically what this means is that over the years, we've learned to put persons with disability at the core of decision-making processes by setting an inclusive and diverse model for them to be part of, the whole training and leadership team. And they're also involved in planning. And basically what this means is that over the years, we've been able to motivate employers of labor to hire them, to see them as competent so that they can be part of the process. So yes, I'm really grateful for all of these trajectories. It's been very inspiring. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely. Every little bit helps, right? So in that vein, how can our attendees and listeners help support Special Needs Initiative for Growth and its important work?
I would say, please get in touch with us. We would like you to be part of a much greater inclusion of people with disabilities in vocational and educational opportunities, in employment, in accessibility, in social welfare. We need you. So please reach out to us via email. We have our social media handles or telephone, whatever medium is suitable for you. And we'll also share details with the program organizer so that you can have to reach us, because we need you to be part of this overarching system whereby no one is left behind because of the limited functionality, but they're part of an overarching system where there's full, dignity, their potentials are realized, and there's humanness, because that's the essence of why we started. We want to see a world where the promotion of humanness is at the top of profits making and every other, capitalism that we always hear. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Racheal. We will take some questions now from the audience. So please put your questions in the chat or raise your hand and Anna will call on you to ask your question.
Okay, so I loved, Racheal, I really liked what you said about tiny drops of water that can really make an ocean. So I was wondering if we think about this tiny drop, which is education technology that you mentioned you're using, could you describe how did you find the partnerships with schools working for you? And did the schools help you with any resources? How did that partnership work?
Yeah, so what we started with was like I mentioned, we gathered data from the families. So many of the families come to us and say, hey, my child is not part of an ICT class, a computer class, because, maybe the principal says the child is not intellectually sound to be part of that class. And we let them know that persons with intellectual or hidden disability or who are neurodiverse can also be part of a computational system. That means they can learn computational skills. So what we do is that we go to schools, we go to organizations who have access to education technologies, maker spaces, where you have 3D printing, all of those, tech thing going on. And we say to them, hey, you cannot have an ecosystem without having other people who are also diverse. So that means we give them the reason to have people with disabilities come and have trainings. So we partner with them, we have these trainings with them, and then they see it, they like it. In fact, I remember one we had with Andela. Andela is a tech hub, which is really thriving in terms of, ensuring that software technology is in the forefront. So they were really pleased with what they saw with visually impaired persons. So imagine someone who's visually impaired, coding, making websites. That's the dream. And we couldn't have done that if we did not approach them. So yes, we had to take the bold step to approach, discuss, give them data of the evidences of what parents want to see and how important it is to have an ecosystem where technology is part, is leaving no one behind. And I think it really worked because over the years, we've seen a lot of, of our young adults really do well in terms of their perception, in terms of distance, attitude to tech, and all of that. Yeah.
On that topic, we have one more question from Leah. So if we think about allocating educational or training resources that your organization provides or the schools provide, are there any other biases, like, for example, favoring male children over female children? You mentioned that there is bias that blames the mothers for the conditions of their children. Are there any other biases that you'd like us to think about as we close up this event? And if anybody has other questions for Racheal, I have to mention that please get in touch with us so we send your questions to Racheal, because we don't have a lot of time. But it's been such a fascinating conversation. I learned a lot.
Yeah. So the other barriers like attitude. So so one of my friend who is actually with cerebral palsy told me something. So when she was 5 years old, she was going to school, and then she was going straight, and then someone who was pregnant was coming like this. So they were going to hit face to face, and the older woman said, God forbid, she's seeing her with cerebral palsy going, so she just turned the other way and went. So what does this mean? Let me explain. So what that meant was that in the culture, and there's a culture in Nigeria, I'm not going to mention it because I don't want people to be biased about it. That culture says that if you're a pregnant woman and you see someone with cerebral palsy or any disability coming, make sure you just do whatever like this, and then you just turn the other way. So that alone is like a cultural, and again, this young girl was coming from school. So imagine such scenario happening. So, and then that's one. Then number two, we have issues around students or parents that tell you during the PTA Parent Teachers Association meeting, they tell you, I don't want my child sitting with someone who has Down syndrome. I don't want my child sitting with someone who has cerebral palsy, because obviously when they spittle, or they have issues with their gross motor skills when they spittle, they feel like the spittle could contaminate the child. All of these barriers it doesn't have to do with just the culture. Somehow it has to do with the attitude. And that means attitude is everything. I feel like that attitude shift is where we are actually what we're seeking for. How do we shift from an attitude of negligence, from an attitude of, of exclusion, to an attitude of where people begin to see other people for their dignity and their potential? And yeah, I mean, just to address your question, this is just one of the many, but there's so many other factors. Because of time, I'm not able to share so many, but yes, I'll stop here.
Yeah, I think we could keep going on and on. It's very fascinating. Thank you so much. Well, thank you everyone for your questions and for joining us today for a fascinating discussion with this amazing leader. We are grateful to Racheal Inegbedion and Special Needs Initiative for Growth for participating in GlobalWE Connect's 4th Fireside Chat. And thank you to GlobalWE President Leah Keem for welcoming us today. As always, we greatly appreciate our GlobalWE board and Connect team for making this event possible. Now I will turn it over to GlobalWE Connect Chair Anna for some concluding remarks and announcements regarding future events.
Great, thank you so much. And Racheal is posting in the chat some of the ways to connect with Special Needs Initiative for Growth, which we will also be sending to participants afterwards. And this is just a reminder, this is our 4th Fireside Chat, and we're going to be holding our 5th Fireside Chat next year in February. And we're going to be featuring Vital Strategies, a global public health organization. We'll send more updates as time progresses. We're also planning our first ever hybrid GlobalWE Connect Women's Empowerment Expo, and tentatively the date would be 25th of March. So to sign up as a volunteer to help us with our yearly Women's Empowerment Expo, send us a message at Connect email address that I'm going to put in the chat. So practically last year's we highlighted and involved over 50 organizations leading the way for women's empowerment worldwide. Our focus is worldwide, and we had hundreds of attendees from around the world, but it was virtual. This year, we're going to have both virtual and in person. So really excited about that. And you can always visit our YouTube channel for any videos. We are posting our events there, recordings of our events there. Also, GlobalWE is looking for essay contest managers. These managers are working with the essay contest program, and it's a great opportunity to learn firsthand about issues facing women and girls worldwide. So I'm also going to put the application in the chat. Reach out to Julie by following up on this application that I just put in the chat. And get ready to help amplify the voices of young students who are passionate about women's and girls' issues worldwide. So as a reminder, if you're not a member or a friend of GlobalWE but would like to join us, please visit our website at harvardglobalwe.org, and you can sign up to receive our newsletter. So if you there are 2 sign-up links. If you have any Harvard affiliation, you sign up as a member. If you don't have a Harvard affiliation, you sign up as a friend. And both of these are free as and we are very thankful again for your participation, and we wish you a wonderful rest of your day whenever and wherever you are. Thank you all.